didn't really have to flex their muscles to get in and have to do a lot. Again, this is the other side of the fundamentals, the basics comments here. They're not pulling out 0 days to do most of these breaches. So the typical value prop, we've talked about this all the way at the end here. You've got the aha moment. You know, that's the point at which your management, whoever needs to take the pen test seriously, finally does. And we want to move that aha moment. We want to move it as early in the process as possible. We don't want that to happen after we've already left and disengaged with the client. And at the end, you know, we don't find out what happens. That's the but how there. You know, so 20 grand just to get to an aha moment, or 6 grand. You know, I don't know how much you're charging for pen tests or how big they are. And in a lot of cases, you know, I heard this over and over for years. You know, it's not that they don't know what's wrong in the environment. They need an external party to come in and convince management that this really is an issue. Could you please tell them the same thing I've been telling them for years? And magically, an external consultant comes in and does that. Has that happened to any of you? Like you're the magic consultant that says what they've been saying for years, and things finally start happening. So this first view into the replacement here. You know, if we get that aha moment up front, which, you know, I think simulating a breach is a good way to do that, if you can see that all the way over there. I don't know if my laser pointer isn't effective from this distance. Then we can start fixing stuff. You know, when we've done these breach impact assessments, we typically get that aha moment. You know, in private I call it the oh shit moment, but, you know, publicly the aha moment. I've had people fixing stuff within the first couple hours of the engagement, or at least planning to fix stuff, you know, understanding what's wrong. Because you're right there, you're doing it in front of them. You know, we go in a conference room to do the breach simulations. We start simulating malware beaconing out. Okay, why is your phone not blowing out? We start beaconing all the different things that happen during the breach that the client should be aware of, and nothing happens. So we start investigating that. Oftentimes within just a couple of hours, you know, we've made a huge amount of progress. You know, something that, you know, 2-3 years down the road, if they're just getting pen tests, they wouldn't even be aware that their products aren't detecting common breach events, common attacker events. And we also shifted from standalone, large, ad hoc assessments to subscriptions. You know, so here's 4, 8, 16 hours of my time every month. You can use that as IR retainer. You can bundle up those hours, use it as a pen test. Because the nature of security, something hits the headlines, they're going to have questions. They're going to want to talk to you. You know, is this something that's important for me? So I found, you know, with what you typically pay on a pen test, if we spread that out over months, we can get a lot more a roadway out of that. And also, you know, small company, as a pen tester, I didn't have to go out and sell. I didn't have to worry about when my next big engagement was coming from. You know, because I'm working with these same companies. You know, they can call me up. I'm already familiar with their environment. I'm familiar with them, what they're concerned about, what their goals are. We can get a lot more done a lot quicker. So a lot of this that I'm harping on is really more of a relationship. You know, it's not a black box. You know, you don't talk to the pen tester. You need to whitelist them in the IDS or IPS. You know, he's going to come in, beat you up, leave a report, and head out until the next year. You know, a lot more what you see in a purple team, what people describe as purple team. So you're going to see a lot of commonalities there. Yeah, so I've mentioned that, you know, oftentimes that's all they've got for their budget. So looking at how the typical pen test goes, obviously this is simplified, but if we can automate the scanning, in a lot of cases, you know, they've already done the same vulnerability scan you're going to do when you pop in. You know, sure, maybe you want to configure your own. But, you know, we'll give them a VM they can download, you know, or we'll send them a small Intel nut box or something like that. We'll make sure that that scan, any kind of scan data we need, that's just automated. It's done before the pen tester even engages. You know, so this whole part of the pen test, you know, that saves hours that we can do other stuff. We can fill that time with other more useful stuff. And then on the back end, still most pen testers are writing reports in Word. It's a lengthy, painful process. Everybody hates it. And I've seen several companies automate that away. Where maybe the pen tester has to put in a few notes, but there's a web-based portal somewhere. You upload the scan data into it, you make some notes. That's the report. If they have questions, they can ask a pen tester later. So both ends of this, this is where we get most of the inefficiency, in the reporting and the scan. We cut out those two pieces, we can do a lot more. We can free up a lot more time there. And I think this is part of the reason. Parkinson's law, work expands to fill the time available for completion. And I think that applies to budgets as well. So if we look at the whole pen test process, the stuff in red there, again, I'm kind of harping on the same stuff here, but the pen test kind of adds an additional issue here. What the client needs in most cases is help with the fundamentals, help with the basics. What they get is yet another problem. They've got to parse through this pen test report, stop what they're doing, focus on some of that. So fixing design. Identified a couple of problems here. I've mentioned the issue focusing on symptoms, fixing vulnerabilities, applying patches instead of going after root cause. Focusing on preventative controls, not the client's ability to detect what you're doing. A pen test is a perfect opportunity to see if all your other security products work. Run these breach simulations, let the pen tester do their scanning. Stuff should be popping up, firing all over the place. And you want to use that to exercise your team, give them a chance to do that. Furthermore, you need the ability to do that when the pen tester's not there. We've got to be able to practice this stuff. Focus with the pen test is going deep on that preventative stuff, not breadth. So we're not looking at, again, some of the common things. Are workstations safe to browse the internet without getting hit by drive-by attacks? Our browsers, Flash, Java, all that stuff getting patched. A lot of that stuff doesn't emerge in a pen test unless you're doing some kind of phishing assessment, which again is like an extra piece, even though it's the most likely thing for your clients to get hit with. And then lack of metrics. How do we know the pen test is even helping? How do we know we did a good pen test or a bad pen test? Without some kind of metrics to track that. So, let's see. Yeah, so root cause analysis here. So you guys are getting access to some of these slides, so I'm gonna flip through some of this stuff quicker. Yeah, so instead of playing whack-a-mole, going after some of the reasons that you have vulnerabilities in the first place, instead of just going after specific ones. And it really is people and processes for the most part that results in security issues. Typically not as much specific technical outliers. Again, pointing out we're mostly blind on the inside. Once an attacker gets in, it's they're free to roam. Same thing with a pen tester as with an external adversary. So this is a problem I run into a lot. You see a lot of breaches in the newspapers. You see, the coverage of Equifax, is all about how somebody didn't patch struts. I mean, you're not getting everybody's credit report just because somebody didn't patch struts. They're getting all those credit reports because somebody didn't patch struts and a whole bunch of other things that is not as visible to us, so it doesn't get reported in the media, so we don't think about it. But there's a lot of layers. You have to fail at a lot of different layers for a lot of these breaches and attacks to be successful. And there are a lot of opportunities to stop a breach, but we've got little to no ability for detection, response, and recovery here. So, like I said, same for the criminal as for the pen tester. Once you get in, once you get past that first foothold, which we're so focused on, which somebody is eventually going to get in, a piece of malware is eventually going to get in, we've got to be able to detect it and respond to it, contain it, recover from it. So Neil Yu has this great, I mean, it's just a rubric, it's just a, it looks simple, but it's really handy. It calls it the cyber defense matrix, where we've got, you know, the different stages or categories of what we do: identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover at the top, and then the different parts of the environment there: devices, all the way to identity, people, data. And he's got a session tomorrow that you should check out. It's really useful for a lot of things, shopping for products to what I'm going to use it for here. So the traditional penetration test, you know, when I say it's not covering a whole lot, this is what that actually looks like when we map that out. And if you do really the big, impressive penetration test, you know, maybe you're covering a few other bits, but you're still mostly stuck in the identify and protect area there. So what about the rest of this? What about everything else? How do we touch that? So refocusing on fixing some of this stuff. You know, I mentioned before, you can automate away some of this. So exploiting. You know, I in a lot of cases, you know, when you give a pen tester vulnerability scan output, they're going to be able to glance at it. They'll be able to tell you what they can do with it. I can get in with that. That's probably a false positive. That's worthless. The whole rest of this is worthless. You know, they can tell you that at a glance. But still, we insist on exploiting it, seeing how far we can pivot and stuff like that, which, you know, your client is, again, a 0 on the maturity scale. That's not really helpful at that point. They need help other places. So I don't think we really need to throw rocks through windows to understand that. In a lot of cases, I think sampling is you know, works here. And it's totally doable with a pen test. If I find 5 machines missing antivirus, I don't need to scan all the other segments to see exactly how many others are missing antivirus. It's a systemic problem. You know, if you see it one place, it's probably going to exist elsewhere. So using that time more wisely. And so number 5 here, lack of metrics. There's a lot of good standards out there that can help you build those. We've got to have some kind of pass-fail, some kind of scoring condition here. And then CREST is the only standard I found that really dives into this stuff. If you look at the follow-up section of the CREST pen testing guide, there's some amazing stuff there. Okay. You all don't look terribly convinced, but let's pretend that you're convinced at this point. You know, if that's not the best thing we can do, what is? So maturity, confidence, and resilience, I think, are the best words I can use for what the goals we're going after when we're replacing this. How do we give that to clients? You know, how do we give them any kind of confidence that when an attack comes, they'll actually see it, have the ability to respond to it, do something about it? And I love this quote, I use this constantly, that the point here is you have to be able to make mistakes. In security, that can be very tough. You know, how do you make mistakes in a field where you get fired for making mistakes? We've got to find some way to simulate things, to be able to safely make as many mistakes as possible so that we can improve. And then practice. You know, if your annual pen test is the only time your incident response test gets practiced, you might as well not practice it or have it at all. Because I guarantee you it's not working, it's probably not well tuned. You know, if you practice responding to this kind of stuff only when bad things happen or only when you have a pen test. And even most organizations I'm seeing aren't using the pen test as an opportunity to do that. So practice. And then resilience is playing chess. What happens after struts for Equifax? What's that next level? Can we stop the attacker there? What about the next level after that? What are we doing? Thinking several steps ahead, thinking about, you know, that whole attack chain, you know, building out attack trees. It's a great exercise to do. Stuff you can do in tabletops and things like that. And in most of these offensive things we're doing, you know, so again, I said this is going to kind of resemble purple teaming. You know, we're not including the defendant. You know, they're kind of a third wheel here. Like the only time you talk to the defender is if you know, you can't access something, you need them to whitelist you in something, or they're handing you the report. They're done. Testing in practice. So in a lot of cases, we really don't need Chong Lee, and he doesn't help with the basics anyway. That's not what we're looking for. So that's part of the challenge here, is if this is your average pen tester, this is not who you want to take martial arts lessons from. This is not where you want to start out. And it takes a lot of work. This scene says it really well. 20 years. Is there any faster way? So just some points here. If you're constantly getting malware infections, probably not ready for a pen test. If you can't detect an aggressive port scan, which is pretty much the only thing you're going to see from a pen tester because there's a limited amount of time to do the engagement, pen test doesn't make sense. If you can't detect brute forcing, this amazes me. Somebody's trying 40,000 different username and password combinations and nobody sees it, really? If it hits AD like that, that's when you see it because it starts locking out accounts. If it's anything other than Active Directory, we don't see any lockout accounts. The attacker can try 100,000 different combinations and nobody knows. All right, so I've got a minute here. I suspected this might happen, so I'm going to skip. See if I can quickly skip to the end here. It's actually going the opposite direction. Like I said, you've got these slides. And so let me show you what this looks like after we fill this out. So breach and attack simulation gives us a lot of pieces there. This is something where we can simulate the different portions of a breach and actually have in the handouts that you got, if you got that QR code, I actually have a sample of what that report looks like. And when you look at that report, that's a 3-hour engagement. We were considering doing that as a loss leader for free, just to get the work to come in and help them make their security better, fix stuff. So, and I think we could get that under an hour. Like we could come in and do that in under an hour. Just to give you an idea of how much space you can cover in a very short amount of time using some automation. And you can do that with open source tools out there. There's commercial breach and attack simulation tools here in the expo here. And then you've got tabletops can be useful for the people aspect of it. Even down to the PR level. How are you going to handle it when it goes public? That makes a big difference. And then DR testing, actually seeing if you can restore stuff after ransomware. So that's going to be more of a different engagement. The replacement is not going to cover that. And so the replacement here looks kind of like this. All the scanning is typically done ahead of time. There's a little bit of time to set that up. Breach and attack simulation can happen very quickly. Like I said, I think as little as an hour. You're still doing some pen testing stuff. And then you can spend a huge amount of time figuring out, what's really going to hit them hard, where they're going to get breached at, and start working on some fundamentals. So again, I think the biggest challenge there is not switching up from doing the pen test, but if all we have are pen testers, if all we have is a hammer, we do need some blue team skills here to do something that resembles more purple teaming. And I do not know what to call this. We can still call it pen testing. I don't know. Like I said, just the breach and attack simulation piece, I've been calling that a breach impact assessment. Where there's no pen testing there if you do it by itself. The whole point is for the client to know what would happen if they got breached right now, today. And yeah, so this is kind of a summary here, going after maturity, confidence, and resilience. 3 things that a pen test doesn't really get us for the client. And again, I do have the required takeaway slides here, but they're very bullet point heavy. I've got one for enterprises, one for consulting firms, one for consultants. Pick up the slides, read through them. I think I'm out of time, so sorry about that. so that was a 120-minute talk, 45 minutes. Thank you for coming, and feel free. I'd love questions. Everything's on the table. Anything you want to ask, you want more resources, I'll share what I've got with you.